Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are here to pay the bills. Jake Micah, as always, joined by my co-host, Mike Buntes. We are here, Mike, and it is the debut of HBO Hard Knocks Buffalo Bills. And we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm assuming the top thing that we're going to talk about tonight, James Cook, is going to be mentioned on Hard Knocks later. So we're not going to touch too much on the episode itself. Excited about it. But, Mike, we've got a lot to get into. You were at camp over the weekend as well. There was the scrimmage on Friday. We have all the James Cook talk that we're going to get into. But how are you doing on this Tuesday, August 5th? Sorry.
I'm feeling good, but I'm a little bit tired. I feel like I've been going nonstop between my normal job and then media access with the Bills. It's been just nonstop for 2 weeks straight. I need a little bit of a break, but I'm going on adrenaline. And honestly, talking about the Bills, it could be a lot harder than that. So excited about this episode, excited for Hard Knocks later tonight, and a lot to get into, especially with what I've seen at camp the last week and a half.
Yeah, we're here. Like the football world is centering back onto Western New York tonight. And for the next, really the next month, everybody's going to have their opinions on what happens on Hard Knocks and base a lot of their opinions on the Bills going into the season and what this training camp has been like off this episode. And let's just talk about what we think is going to be the biggest thing tonight, and probably has been the biggest story about the Bills all summer long and has continued, unfortunately, into training camp, and that is James Cook. So since we were last here, we were like, James is at practice. Things are looking all right. He's still here. And then over the weekend, he didn't practice. And then he didn't practice again. And after the first time he didn't practice, he stated that he sat out just business. He didn't even say the word just stated the word business, repeated it, I believe, 8 times in his press conference, or even, I believe, maybe it was just an interview with Elena Getzenberg, who does great work with ESPN. So that's where we're at here today. The timing in this man's opinion is incredibly fortuitous for agent and client looking to get as much attention on a contract negotiation as possible, with the debut of Hard Knocks happening tonight and sitting out practice after already showing up to practice for a week. That's all. I'm just gonna leave it there, because that's really like the one thing that I think I responded to you even the other day. That was the one thing that bothered me the most about it, was the timing, because timing is very convenient for me. But what are your opinions on this whole development? And then you were at camp, obviously, as this is going on, and seeing it unfold as it was happening during the day. So what are your impressions? What did you hear? What else did you hear at camp about this situation? Just where are you at with James Cook right now, Mike?
Yeah, the James Cook situation is an interesting one, and it's because, have you ever seen it where a person reports for training camp, practices, and then starts their hold-in midway through camp? This is something I've never encountered. Maybe it's happened with other teams, but I certainly have never seen this happen in Buffalo before. And my thought the whole offseason was, it's probably not likely they're going to come to terms, that he's probably going to play the season, go separate ways next year, and that is what it is. Now you're hearing reports from insiders that are actually pretty trusted in Tom Pelissero and Diana Rossini, who say they're actually not that far apart, and that Cook is doing this to kind of put pressure on the Bills to get this over the finish line. I don't know if I believe that. I have no reason not to trust these insiders, but it doesn't sound, when Brandon Beane is talking like this, is anything close. So is this coming from Cook himself? Is this coming from his agent? It's definitely possible, but it's just a weird situation, especially when he did speak to Elena Getzenberg and just had one-word answers, business, each time. The Bills didn't have a comment after practice on Sunday, so they were definitely blindsided by what James Cook did. They did not anticipate it, and it continued into Monday. We'll see if that's the case on Wednesday. I don't know how this really helps James Cook. I guess in a way, if maybe it puts the pressure on the Bills now to try to make him happy, at least short term. Maybe they can give him a bump in pay this year, or maybe this does push them to try to finish things up. But that's assuming they're even close. If they're not close, how long is James Cook willing to sit out for? How long is he going to be making business decisions? Is this going to carry into the regular season? I'm not too worried about it after 2 practices, but it's definitely becoming a storyline with each passing day. The ironic part about Hard Knocks being tonight is, though, they're actually probably going to have their storyline about Cook reporting to camp, about how it wasn't a storyline. So unless they make some last-second edits to episode 1, I don't even know if James Cook is going to be a storyline in the beginning of Hard Knocks. As far as what's going on the last
That's
few days.
true. Yeah, they could, and it depends on what the timeline they go with it is. You assume they're going to mention the negotiation and everything else, but who knows? Like it remains to be seen. This is where we're not going to touch on. Like we're going to have some review and content reviewing the episode later on and tomorrow and through the week. Obviously, there'll be conversation all over about it. So we'll see that. I'm excited to see how they cover it because that's really important to me. How they are framing the dispute in what way, because they could frame it in multiple different ways, and that's the thing that interests me, Mike, with what you said about the Pelissero and Rossini reports, because who does this benefit? Who does that benefit getting that information out there? It benefits James Cook from the side of public perception, right? Like if the deal's close, then it's like, well, Bean, just pay him, whatever it is. Like that's what they're trying to, and then doing this in front of Hard Knocks is hoping you get on the show and hoping this gets to be complaint, because then if you appear a sympathetic figure on national television tonight, what's Pardon My Take going to be talking about when they review the episode tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like all the talking heads are going to have an opinion on however Hard Knocks presents the James Cook situation. So if you're the agency and you're the publicist and whoever is giving James Cook, if you're Dalvin, whoever's giving James Cook all his advice this summer, it would behoove you to tell everybody that the deal is close. It didn't sound like to me that Brandon Beane thought the deal was close when he told GR that whether you get a deal done now or he goes into the season and works hard, we'll see what happens. That doesn't sound like a deal's close, in my opinion. So it's very interesting, and it is a lit. I'm waiting to see. I've been going back and forth on whether I'm going to put out a big thing on. I have a lot more thoughts on James Cook and the way the Bills should handle this, and I'm just not ready if I'm willing to go there just yet. But football is a chemistry project. We can't think about this James Cook situation with this team just as talented player for the future and on this Bills team right now, right? Like we can, but there's also this is not just some normal Bills season. Like there is an increased pressure this year. There's a precedent already been set by how the team has treated players that have acted like this when it comes to with contracts, when it comes to bringing things to the public, everything like that. So it's just we're at a whether fans want to believe it or not, Mike, I think we're at a crossroads with how Brandon Beane is going to deal with star players going forward, because how he handles Cook right now sets a precedent for everything else. If he just gives Cook what he wants after all this, what's going to stop enter any Keon Coleman from doing the same thing and trying to demand what he wants, or Dalton Kincaid if he has a couple of good years and when he wants his contract extension? Like this is why they have to handle this perfectly. But the balance of their Super Bowl aspirations and the chemistry of this team with the role that Cook plays and how dynamic and good because that's the part of the conversation that I don't give enough credence to. I will name my bias here is that I don't give enough credit to that James Cook is an incredible football player. I think he's an incredible football player. I really, really do. But that's why this conversation's so hard to have, because we're talking about the thinnest of margins for a team who has for 5 years not been able to push through. And if the running back's going to mess up the chemistry of the team to a point where the general manager thinks or the coach thinks that it's a real issue, what do you do? That's why they get paid the big bucks, though, not you and I. That's why we're here to just sit here and talk about it. But that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Cook, you and I have some areas where we agree and then some areas where we disagree. And I don't know if we're actually far apart on how we actually feel, but I do believe you and I frame it differently. And that's where the disagreement probably can factor in. You mentioned the money part and say you don't believe that Cook is really worth the high-end elite money guys like Saquon, Christian, McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. And you mentioned how the Bills haven't gotten over the top with James Cook. I agree with that part where he's not those three guys. But I don't know if the gap is as big as what Bills fans would say it is from those three guys to a James Cook. I would put him in the 5 to 7 running back range. Kyren Williams just got a 3-year, $33 million contract. I would definitely put Cook in similar money to him overall. My thought is this. The best out of the best running backs, they have normally a combination of one or two elite skill sets that set them apart. Derrick Henry, it's his physicality combined with his size and speed. You don't see guys that big with that type of speed to go along with it. Christian McCaffrey, it's his elusiveness, his ability to be a good receiver, route runner. Saquon, it's the all-around back, great vision, great speed, great elusiveness, agility, everything. Cook doesn't have quite that package of multiple things. But if you just look at his explosiveness, good luck finding more explosive players in the NFL than James Cook. He is an explosive back and one of the best at that. You look at the Bills' offense last year, they didn't get done down the field passing. They didn't make explosive plays through the air, even with an MVP quarterback. Their explosive plays were on the ground. And as easy as it is to say, without James Cook, you can replace a running back with another fast running back. That's easier said than done. Right now, you lose James Cook. Ty Johnson and Ray Davis aren't replacing that explosiveness that James Cook brings to the table. And then you have a problem if you're Buffalo. If you don't find a way to get those explosive plays, defenses can crowd the line a little bit more, and then they can defend you differently. So I believe that James Cook was the perfect weapon for the Bills last year because when teams started to shut down their pass game, he opened up the run game to bring back an element they were lacking early in the season. Now, how do you value that? Some people are going to say, well, James Cook doesn't average 6 yards a carry. He's not 5.5 yards per carry. So what's the real difference between him and somebody that averages maybe a half yard less? On paper, that's fine. But when you're in a one-score game and James Cook gets a 50-yard touchdown that somebody else might have taken for a 10-yard run, that makes a difference. And you only really know it when it happens, and you can't predict when that's going to happen. And Cook, when he was drafted, he was supposed to be more of a guy that didn't have as wide of a skill set, didn't have the ability to be a three-down back and do other stuff. He has improved in a lot of areas as well. And maybe he's never going to be a great blocker or pass protector, but I do believe he's earned a reputation for being a top 5 to 7 running back in the NFL. I do think he's worthy of getting 10 plus million. The sweet spot for the Bills is probably 10 million. That's probably where they want to be. And Cook probably wants to be a little bit more. I said earlier on another podcast, he's probably trying to be 13, 14. The Bills are probably around 9 or 10. And that sweet spot is probably right around 12, 13 million. Are the Bills willing to go there? It doesn't seem like it at this point. But whatever Cook has been talking about, 15 million plus, I've never taken that seriously because you look at the market, there's nothing that shows that Cook is in that caliber. But fans are also crazy if they think you can just easily replace his production. That is easier said than done. And right now, he is the Bills' second best offensive player. Mm-hmm. He's as far as like weapons. Like I'm not going to say he's better than Deion Dawkins or stuff like that. That's impossible to really compare. But out of their weapons behind Josh Allen at quarterback, James Cook is the second best offensive player in the skill areas that they have.
And you're everything you said about us. Like we really are in the same place because I'm fine with that money that you're mentioning. I'm in agreement with the talent. I'm in agreement that he's the second best player on the offense. The only thing, and it's the I can't really back up my argument because I don't know what it's like. We don't know what it's like in that locker room, right? We don't know what it is. But Christian Benford leaned into a little bit with us about yesterday. He's the only one who's mentioned the contract negotiation. He mentioned it in his press conference yesterday, and they asked him how he would have done it, and he says, I would have been out there giving it my all, contract extension or not. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a shot at James Cook. I don't think that is necessarily it, but it does show a different perspective of. I think Christian Benford, if he didn't get his contract extension, I don't think Christian Benford would have been holding in. Now that's a 6th-round pick compared to a 2nd-round pick who had a brother who was already in the league, who has been through all this and everything. Like the situations are completely different. And that's why this conversation is so hard to have, because there is so much nuance between the football, between the salary cap ramifications, between how you value running backs, between the position the Bills are in going into 2025 and beyond. Like there's so many different factors that really, if you told me one thing or the other, an extreme escalation would be getting rid of him. I don't think that that's even in the realm of possibility, unless he were to escalate something like he's going to hold out of games and stuff like that. But we're not even close to that point yet. But this is just, I didn't think we'd get to camp. Like, and then when you see it get to camp and he's practicing, and it's like, okay, like, then you know what it is? Like, it's what it is. He's going into the year. He's going to play it out, everything else. So this is just not how I would handle business. Like there's ways that you can try to get paid. I'm all players getting paid, but there's other manners to do it. There's other manners to be difficult in negotiations. There's other levers you can pull that players have used to try to get money, to take it public, to take it the way that they've done it is just, it's not something that Brandon Beane's ever put up with either. And so that this is why
I think your points are fair, but I don't really care about how he's doing it, because even though he's sitting out of practice, I believe the way he's doing it is actually preferable to the other ways he could be doing it. He showed up for practice in the beginning. He showed that he was willing to ball out. The first week of practice, James Cook was playing tremendous. He was making an impact. He was showing the Bills, like, I'm here, I'm working hard. Like, he's showing them, like, I want that contract. At this point in time, as Brandon Beane said, you're only a distraction if we let it turn into a distraction. James Cook is not going out of his way making comments on social media like Micah Parsons. He's not doing interviews where he's going on and on and on about it and complaining or talking bad about the organization. Trey Hendrickson made it known how he felt about the Bengals to the point where Joe Burrow was commenting on it. Cook just saying business is like the least, like, it's silly. It's almost like Marshawn Lynch-like, but it really doesn't. It doesn't really impact the players. They all support him. They want him to get his money. Like, the players support players on this type of stuff. It hasn't impacted his performance on the field during training camp so far. He hasn't indicated whether this is a long-term thing yet. He could be back at practice later this week for all we know. Maybe not, but until it really has a negative consequence to it, there's really not much that I can get upset about it. James Cook has always been a person that doesn't like to be in front of cameras, doesn't want to be the center of attention and speak to the media. So I understand your frustrations. It does put himself in a little bit of a me first mentality. And I know that's not the best look for a team that is in a Super Bowl window with an MVP quarterback. And
a team that has told everybody on their roster they can't do that. This would be a departure. They got rid of the best player in one of the best players in the franchise's history for being a me first player.
I don't agree with that comparison. Stephon Diggs was a completely different scenario behind the scenes. Stephon Diggs wasn't let go because he was a me first player. Stephon Diggs was let go because he was becoming a cancer in the building.
I know, I understand that, but I'm talking about the if you do this now with Cook and give him what he wants, there's another player with a different personality who might treat it differently and look at Cook's way of going about things as a roadmap to get what he wants.
I get it. I get what you're saying as far as precedent and what that could mean. But every situation is unique, and the Bills are going to handle every situation in a different manner depending on who the player is. If a star wants to do something, there's going to be more leniency to a star than somebody that's lesser in talent. And there's going to be different standards for different caliber of players. I don't think just because the Bills end up maybe paying James Cook, does that mean that they have to pay the next person that holds out?
I think the agents will think that.
Agents can think whatever they want. They're not the ones that give out the contracts. And like, this is the thing. And this was discussed on GR the other day. Jeremy White was talking about it. Every one of these Bill signings so far this offseason, you hear people talking about, oh, the Bills got that guy at a discount. The Bills got this player at a discount. Doesn't mean that you got him on a discount. It just meant the player was happy with the offer and that both sides thought that they had fair value. I don't think Greg Rousseau at $20 million a year is necessarily a discount. Some people might view it as a discount if they think he's an elite pass rusher. Christian Benford, he might be a discount if he ends up becoming a premier corner and stays that way. But what if he regresses this year? I don't think it's going to happen, but that wouldn't be a discount. You are what you're able to get money-wise. And right now, what the Bills value Cook is not what Cook values himself. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Bills might just not have a certain price tag for running backs, and Cook might say, I've done all this stuff. I deserve a little bit more. I don't have an issue with the way they're going at it because I don't think that Cook is truly causing the team any problems at this point in time. Is it a little self-focused, putting himself above the team? Yes. But it's one thing when you're putting yourself in front of the team and you're being destructive to your teammates and you're hurting your team and you are visibly demonstrating a lack of support for your teammates, whether that be in front of cameras, behind cameras, on the field, off the field. I don't get any sense that James Cook is doing anything that is actually causing issues within the Buffalo Bills organization. Yes, they want him to be on the field. They want him to practice. Like that's obvious. Does he technically hurt the team slightly by not being out there on the field? Yeah, a little bit, but this isn't a new player in the organization. This isn't someone that doesn't know the playbook, doesn't know what he's doing. He's been with the team for 3 years. He's a running back that can get acclimated really quick. He's already shown that he's in game shape, that he was practicing at a high level early on. If anything, this gets more reps to Ray Davis and Ty Johnson in the meantime, and some of the younger guys competing for maybe a depth spot or practice squad opportunities. And it keeps them healthy for a little bit longer. So it's not ideal, but from everything I've heard from players, from everything that I've heard from management, Cook carries himself professionally. He does want to win football games. He gets along with his teammates. He's well liked by everyone around him in the building. That is not the Stephon Diggs type situation. Stephon Diggs was under contract. His me first was that there was certain individuals on the team that wanted nothing to do with him anymore. And he was becoming an issue for the team on the field and off the field. And he wasn't basically ending distractions. He was letting his brother talk. And now I know Dalvin talks too, but it's a little bit different Trayvon Diggs on the Cowboys versus Dalvin Cook, who's now a washed up older player who's past his prime, although was a great running back at one point in time. I don't think the Bills view them in the same light. And the thing with Diggs too, you know that they hated the situation because they were willing to take on all that dead cap just to get rid of him. With Cook, he's important to their goals this year for what they want to achieve. And the best thing for both sides is figuring something out to make him happy short term, get him out on the field, produce at a high level, and then one way or another, he earns a contract, whether it's in Buffalo or away from Buffalo, and both sides at least benefit from his production on the field this year. That's what they're working towards. I believe they'll figure it out. Because if Cook ain't on the field in September, he's only hurting himself. He's only hurting himself. Because if he thinks he's going to get if he thinks he's going to get $13, $14 million, he ain't getting that by playing half a season. He's going to need to put up numbers. Running back contracts are as much about the numbers that you put up as the talent you have. All of these guys have talent. The ones that get paid are the ones that put up numbers.
That's a big part of this conversation too, is the production and everything else. Because as you said, they're not going to replace his production this year. It's not going to happen regardless. But I don't think he's scoring 16 touchdowns. I would bet that he's not scoring 16 touchdowns again this year, against the field of anything else. That is between 2 touchdowns to 16. Now he had way more usage, everything else. But to me, I see a lot of arguments with the touchdowns, mention the production and everything else. He doesn't get used on the field enough. And that's the biggest thing for me when we're talking about the high level of paying him. And you can make the argument as much of, okay, well, then maybe they should put him on the field more. Do they trust him to do it? And that's probably part of this whole conversation too, is like, where do you value a guy who, even if in that role, as dynamic as much as we've been able to produce, if he's not a full-time player, like how much are you going to pay a relief pitcher in baseball? Like, I'm not saying he's more than that, obviously, but like we're getting into like when the Kyren Williams thing today, which we haven't even mentioned Kyren Williams, but it was a great argument starter for James Cook discussion today for him to get signed 3 years, $33 million, and to see all the way that he is used is so drastically different than the way the Bills use James Cook. He's on the field, I believe it's like 87% of the snaps. He's a workhorse. He is not nearly as efficient as Cook. But when you see the roles, it's like, okay, what role what role are the Bills going to actually put him into? Like it doesn't seem like they want to do they've never wanted to do a bell cow back. Right? Like, so if they find that the guy at 50, percent of the snaps producing what he's doing is worth it, then that I agree. And you can, and if they think they can up that, if they think that working on the things he needs to work on, I would assume it's pass blocking that's keeping him off the field on those third downs as much as anything else. If he's showing that willingness, if they're seeing improvement, I wouldn't see why he wouldn't get that opportunity this year to do that. Right. But that's like the biggest crux of the conversation right now when you're deciding to pay him right now or pay him next year is last year, the 16 touchdowns from 2 to 16. It's like, you can't count on either of those things for me. And then it's like, I know you have to pay on projection. Contracts are always a bit of a projection, but with running backs, it hasn't been about that. It's been like, what have you produced before you got that? And so it's a really hard conversation for me when it comes to how good of a run, where he is talent level and where running back value is right now in this league. I think it's really just met at a head where I'm like, I'm baffled because it's 2 competing things that I've felt for quite a long time about how you build a football team. And I just don't know, but I understand what you're saying too about Diggs. I know Diggs was, we've talked at length about how much more of a problem Diggs was behind the scenes and everything else. It's just opening the door for different avenues for other personalities in that case-by-case basis to take advantage of the organization. I
really don't think they have many of those personalities on this team. I agree. I'm just being real with you. A lot of people dismiss words like culture and rightfully so. Like normally talent over culture in most situations, but I will say this, and I know McDermott gets grilled a lot by Bills fans about not being able to finish and win the big one. That reset year last year, I think, did wonders for turning things around in that building. And I don't think there's any chance McDermott's gone in the next 2 years, regardless of what happens this year. To go 13-4 in a reset year where you're mostly with young defensive players, you have an offensive line that was built in your image. You have a weak receiver room, and you have your best season probably of the McDermott era. That did a lot. And you talk to all these young guys that just got extended, like Benford, Rousseau, Bernard, Shakir. What do they all have in common? None of those guys are me first type guys. They're team players. They're soft spoken. They're intelligent, but none of them are craving the camera. None of them are craving the headlines. This team is McDermott's team, and the players take on the personality of the coach. And to me, the early years of McDermott and on the Bills, they had some great squads, but they had a lot more personalities. This team is a lot more reserved overall. And I don't know. I think that means something, and we'll see. With Cook, there's so many factors that go into this. Does Bean believe in paying running backs? Well, past history shows probably not. He didn't re-sign Devin Singletary, but I don't think Devin Singletary was the type of guy that warranted staying long term. He cut ties. Bean obviously cut ties with McCoy, but McCoy was older at that period of time. They really haven't had another running back that has been at the caliber of James Cook. And I'll say this. I know a lot of people say running back is a position that doesn't warrant big money. And I understand a lot of that. But I do think the tides started turning a little bit back in the other direction last season with how defenses have gotten soft with the two safety looks and basically defending explosive deep passing down the field. The response to that, and I'm not saying teams don't pass it a lot. Obviously, teams still pass a lot. But the Bills' response to that was, okay, you're going to shut down our explosive passing game. We're going to run the ball a lot more. We're gonna attack you in different ways. And I think Cook has been the focal point of that. And when you see Kyren Williams get 3 years, $33 million, and yes, you said he's on the field more and he does a larger variety of things, I think Cook is worth every penny of that type of contract. I would take Cook over Kyren Williams. He's more efficient, and maybe he doesn't do quite as much or is not on the field as much, but I believe a lot of that has to deal with how the Bills handle their running backs. They like Ty Johnson as their pass catching back, and he was one of the most efficient pass receiving running backs in the NFL last season. Ray Davis is more of a physical guy. That keeps them fresh. Now, when you go that way, that's an argument for not paying a running back as much because you are dividing things up. But here's the thing. It's all about what is the alternative. If you get rid of Cook, and then that means Ray Davis is taking 50% of your snaps, and Ty Johnson's taking 20% of your snaps, and you need to replace Cook with a third, fourth round pick who's just fast, and then that guy has a drop off in ability, that could impact your offense. Now, how much? It's really impossible to know because it depends on, do you hit on your next running back draft pick? Do you manage your rotation properly? Does your offensive line still stay in place? There's a lot of different variables to this, and I get it. It's a lot easier to find a replacement level running back that's going to be at a decent level than it is finding a receiver or finding a left tackle or finding a quarterback. Those are all much more difficult positions. But at the end of the day, if you asked me, how much of an impact did LaShawn McCoy make on the Bills during his few years in Buffalo? McCoy changed the entire offense during that period of time. So yes, like a good running back can have a huge impact. And I think a lot of times because we have a quarterback like Josh Allen, it makes it easy to dismiss the impact that Cook made. But I don't know if the Bills win 13 games last year if Cook's not their running back. They might not win 12 games last year if Cook's not their running back. So it's tough because I don't think he deserves to get 14, 15 million. But anyone thinking, oh, you could just get a $5 million running back and you're going to have the same production, I think that's equally crazy. Cook has a value. It's significant. And the question is, where do they end up settling? And does Cook end up going to where the Bills want him to be at? Or do the Bills end up giving in to where Cook wants to be? If we're talking about a difference of like $1 or $2 million, it's silly if the Bills don't find a way to get something done, because you can absorb that $2 million over time and you can find a way to make it work. If we're talking $3, $4, $5 million a year, well, then that's a different conversation. That's why I keep thinking the Bills are at like 10 or 11 and Cook's at like 13, 14. Because if they're saying they're close, but they're not finishing the gap, it's because they're both being stubborn at this point in time. If those reports are true, I feel like it's the Bills at 10, Cook at like 13, 14. And the sweet spot is probably 12 million, give or take a little bit. But I just have a feeling the Bills don't want to go above 12. And 10, 11 is probably where they're feeling this gets a little bit rich for us.
And years could be a thing too. I mean, I don't know whether it's we saw the 3-year deal for Kyren. He could be wanting 4 or 5, whatever else it may be. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because like you said, if it's 1 to 2 million, if it's something minuscule, it's like, why not just get this done? But clearly, like, that's why I go back to the first thing I asked you about the Rossini and Pelissero reporting. It's like, why? Who does that benefit to say that it's close if it's not actually close? And it would benefit James Cook to say that it's close, to try to push to get this deal done sooner. And I agree that he's probably a guy that just wants to get this settled and done and out of the way. But also you brought it into camp, so you didn't want to get it that much settled. So that's where we're at here. And I think that me and you, like, you and I just have differing opinions mostly on whether you should have taken it into camp or not. I just think camp is sacred. You don't touch that shit if you're a player with a negotiation. You're more okay with it. That's probably more the new school thought, to let it play out in camp with a whole Holden and everything else. I just the thing that bothers me a lot to mess with training camp, because now, hey, and it also can mess with him. Ray Davis has a great week. There, you could be losing your opportunity to make money too. So I just think it's dumb.
Jake, these holdouts used to be 100 times worse 20 years ago.
Oh, I know. I know. And I hated those too. Don't get me wrong.
These used to go into the season, man. Like, yeah. Jason Peters would miss games.
Oh, and rookies doing it too with the rookie scale and everything.
It used to be a lot worse than what it is now.
The Jason Peters one was brutal.
That was one of the worst. And the Bills traded a future Hall of Fame lineman away.
Yeah. And that's why we're here right now, because it's like you have, like, it's delicate. You don't want to get rid of him for being cheap, and then, you know, he's a super duper star in 3 years and you're still trying to find a new running back. So it's a weird, that's why I think this really is a turning point from everything, from how the Bills treat a running back, how the Bills decide to move forward with this negotiation, with the way it's been handled, how the league looks at running backs within this the tier. Not the A tier, not the S tier, but the A tier running backs, and where do they end up getting paid? I feel like a lot of the league is looking at it too, and just seeing where the Bills decide to go with this, because it's a team that has been so good with that's the thing about the Bills too, like, so good at maneuvering the cap and keeping flexibility open and everything else. You can hear it when Bean's talking about it. Like, he's really struggling with this specific negotiation, but he doesn't want to end up in the situation he ended up in last year either. And I don't think Brandon Bean would be able to sleep. This is what I will say. I don't think Brandon Bean will be able to sleep if they have to say cut a Matt Milano a year early because they paid James Cook a couple extra $1 million. And I'm not saying that's an exact thing, but you know what I mean? I feel like if there was he's trying to avoid that repercussion of cutting a player or not being able to get a player at a position he values more, because he paid a guy at a position that he clearly has not valued his entire tenure. And maybe he'll change his mind. People can change, and I'd be open to that. If he wants to do it, cool, go ahead. I'm going to support it no matter what. But that's just like, I'm just playing off of what I know already in that moment. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of how Bean's looking at it from that perspective too. And I feel like that's what kind of the questions you have to ask if you're a GM. Like, will this impact the future extension for someone else? You know what I mean? Like,
there's another way of looking at it too. Every time the Bills are replacing a running back, they're selecting one either a late second round or the third round. That's true. And when you're in a Super Bowl window and you have the roster already intact that you like, with a bunch of core guys to your offense, which James Cook is one of them, you could make the argument, what is a better use of a second or third round pick? Another running back, or someone that is in a position of need that can really help your defense step up in a big situation. Right now, I love the roster the way it is. I would rather use that second-round pick on a position of need next year than use it on a running back again. And that's another factor that should be included in the talks when we're discussing this as well.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But Mike, you were at camp for the last couple of days. Can you just talk to me about some other things that you noticed, your biggest takeaways that you've seen? You spent a lot of time at camp, but specifically the last couple of days, what are some things you want to touch on here on this show about what you found out?
Do you want to start offense? Do you want to start defense?
Let's go defense. We just talked about offense for 40 minutes, so let's go with some defensive side of the ball, Mike.
All right, let me get this out, and we'll get this going in a second.
Sounds good. Because Mike's been doing a great job. Go check out go check out all our socials and Mike's socials and everything. Just great interviews with players all over the board. I'm sure he's going to get into people that he's talked to. I'm not going to blow up his spot, but there's great coverage. So go check that out. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. It's all over the place.
So I'll get into all of it right now. I'll talk defense and offense. Defensively, the people that have stood out to me so far, Trey White, he looks good. And we'll see what happens in the regular season. Obviously, this is training camp, but for those that were concerned that he was done and didn't have any good football left in him, it definitely has not appeared that way in practice. He is I've seen him one-on-one with Keon Coleman have success during camp, in which Keon has had a lot of success. Trey is deserving of being the starting cornerback right now opposite Christian Benford. And I'll tell you this, even if Maxwell Harrison was healthy, Trey still would be starting at CB2 at this point in time. Another guy under the radar guy can't even speak right now, defensively, that I think has been good so far has been Javon Solomon. I know he's technically on the depth chart with the threes, but he showed some spark so far. AJ Epineza the other day had what would be a pick six and a knockdown. He's had good moments. The entire defensive line recently has been good. Joey Bosa's had some good moments. Greg Rousseau, obviously. There's been a lot of injuries all throughout the defense and offense. So it's hard to evaluate everybody. The other day on Sunday, no Taylor Rapp, no Cole Bishop. Bishop being out, that hurts. DeMar Hamlin's been stepping up. Looks like if Bishop's out, Hamlin's going to be the guy that is the first guy to fill in. Forrest, all the hopes for him going into the training camp, they haven't really he hasn't really lived up to the expectations, not really taking advantage of his opportunity. The linebackers, what you see is what you get. You got Milano, you got Bernard, you know what you have there. Even Dorian Williams is a good third linebacker. Now, offensively, it's interesting because there's a lot of guys that obviously have been out in the receiver room. Keon Coleman has had a great training camp. But that being said, there are inconsistent moments in there. Day one, he got off to a slow start. There's been a couple practices where he had a few drops. But for the most part, Keon Coleman has been very good. And it looks like he's going to be a huge part of this offense. If you ask me how the receiver room looks right now, I think Keon Coleman's probably the number 3. You look at Tyrell Shavers. He's been very good. I think Shavers went from a guy that opened the year probably looking at a practice squad to, I believe, he has a better than 50% chance of making this roster at the current moment. They were targeting him nonstop on Monday. Granted, there's players out, but you still had Elijah Moore. You still had Keon Coleman. And Tyrell Shavers was the guy they were targeting nonstop during practice. And you look at the tight ends, what you see, kind of what you get in that room. Kincaid has moments, but he's not flashing. Like Kincaid isn't. If you're hoping 80 catches plus, I don't know if that's ever going to be the case with this offense. The Bills like to spread it out too much. Offensive line looks solid as they have been in recent years. Now, one player that, and I always say disappointment. I got to be careful because I don't want to be putting players down too much. But the player that Bills fans are going to be, I think, most disappointed in based on their own expectations, which were probably higher than what they should have been in the first place, is Elijah Moore. He is not the number 1, not the number 2, not the number 3. He might not even be the number 4 on this team. He started practice switching between the 2s and the 1s. If you're getting reps with the 2s, you're not being looked at as a 50, 60 catch guy with the Bills. He's a depth piece at this point. You would think with all the injuries they've had, with Khalil Shakir being out, with Curtis Samuel being out, and with Josh Palmer missing some team drills over the last couple practices, that a guy like Elijah Moore should be shining. And he really hasn't. He has moments. He makes some plays. They try to use him in creative ways. But there's a reason why the Jets moved on from him and the Browns moved on from him, and that he wasn't signed before the draft when 32 teams had a chance to sign him, and why he got a $5 million deal. You look at other guys that have got minimal contracts from the Bills in recent years. You have Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins. None of those guys, and Curtis Samuel signed for $8 million while Elijah Moore was at $5 million. None of those guys were 60-plus catch guys in Buffalo. And the talk of it has been, well, you pair Elijah Moore with a star quarterback, and it's going to bring out the best in him. Well, in order to bring out the best in him, he needs to be getting the same amount of reps. And if he's a number 4 receiver in Buffalo versus being a number 2 receiver in Cleveland, his production just isn't going to match up. And I do like Elijah Moore, and I do think he's going to have a role on this team and that he makes it and that he will have an impact. But there was talk about from fans, like, this is going to be a 700-plus yard receiver in Buffalo. He might be a 300 to like 400-yard guy. I don't even see him being a 500, 600-yard guy the way they're currently using him.
Not ideal for all the Elijah Moore lovers out there, but I do. I even with everything you're saying about Coleman, that's still, you have to expect some inconsistencies in year 2. But to see what you've seen and to hear what you've heard, we're on week 2 of camp here. It's been a consistent story since the beginning. That is awesome to hear, and also awesome to hear about Trey White, which obviously we avoided any. That's I guess another thing we didn't touch on as much here is that we avoided the Maxwell Hairston injury, the worst case scenario injury. And he's out for camp right now. He's probably not going to be starting the season, but Trey White is going to be fine. They're going to be fine to start the season and for the year, the way he's looked so far. It's just, I mean, that's what it also comes down to, like the human element of this whole thing. And that really is a lot of the juxtaposition of my conversation. And you've quelled me a little bit with how the players have reacted to James Cook and everything else here, but this is a completely different scenario. Trey White just being back into a place that he never wanted to leave has to be doing wonders for his career more than anything else. Like, he didn't want to get cut. He wanted to probably retire a bit, and now he has the opportunity to, if he maybe wants to again, who knows? But like, that's a guy who clearly was the Buffalo Bills, right? Like, it was the heart and soul of this team. And just to get him back into an environment that he wants to be in, and also having the time this summer healthy finally to kind of work on his game and get back to where he is. Awesome to see, and is one of the best stories that there. I'm sure we talk about Hard Knocks a little bit. Like, that's going to be one. We know that there's one thing I can guarantee we're going to hear a lot of tonight. It's Tre'Davious White just doing something, and a lot of Christian Benford highlights. I think the seat cornerback room is going to get a big spotlight tonight because they deserve it with everything that's been going on at camp so far. So good, all exciting stuff, Mike. And how has it been just for you as a personal experience being there on site and just being able to take all this in? Like, it's a lot, I'm sure. Like, covering camp seems like it's a challenge, just trying to get to what you can see, what you can do. And you've done, Mike, like I said, if you haven't done it, go check out all Mike's coverage. But you've done a job where you've been focusing on a group each day and looking at that. I feel like that's probably the only way with the time that you have you could even approach it. But I do want to ask you, like, how you approach that just from like your strategic level of covering camp, because from everything that I hear, it's just so hard to be able to try. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it when you're there.
Yeah. So when I knew I was going to be getting credentialed for Bills camp. And I kind of knew for a while because we had limited access last year and were there a couple days. That was a huge benefit going into this year because I kind of had an idea what each day was going to be like, what I had time to get video of, what I had time to tweet and focus on. And last year, there's always a little bit of the insecurity of, well, am I going to be allowed to talk to this player? What if they don't want to talk to me? What if the Bills don't let me? And this year it's been more, you know what, just go out there after practice, see if the person's down. If they're down, good. If they're not, like, no big deal. You're going to get denied sometimes. So I've kind of gone into each practice with the mindset I want to cover this specific group or these specific players. So day one, when I was there, I wanted to showcase Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer, the everyone eats mentality. So I got a lot of video of them. And then afterwards, had an interview set up with Josh Palmer one-on-one. And while waiting for him, Elijah Moore just so happened to be walking by and grabbed him. So that was a nice story to get things started. I went into the next practice hoping to get Maxwell Hairston. And this is an easy story. A rookie coming into Buffalo. You have Trey White mentoring him. You have Christian Benford mentoring him. Either one of them would have been good. It would have been cool to get both of them, but Trey had the press conference, and I wasn't going to be able to have enough time to get to the press conference after because I was getting player sound one-on-one. So I was able to talk to Maxwell Hairston pretty quick. And then Benford, he must have been signing autographs for like 30 straight minutes. Like, that is one of the most humble, down-to-earth people on the team. And I hope Bills fans get to know Christian Benford better because really religious, humble man that is just a great person, or at least comes across that way. Spent a lot of time with fans, was great to me. And so focused on basically Benford's ascension to becoming one of the top corners in the league, while also Maxwell Hairston trying to become that and learn under Trey and Benford. And then ironically, Maxwell Hairston gets hurt like 2 practices later. And then Sunday and Monday when I was there, Sunday I went in, focused on defensive linemen. I was hoping to get Bosa. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get Joey, but got Greg Rousseau. That made good sound. Spoke to Joe Andreessen. Obviously, we have bullet points here at Trainwreck. Wanted to get UB some publicity. Hometown guy. People love him. So that was nice. During that practice, I also had some time to get Keon Coleman footage because he's had a great camp. Wanted to get him some spotlight. Didn't have an opportunity to talk to him. So I had all this footage going into Tuesday, and I really did going into Monday, pardon me. And I didn't really know what I was going to do on Monday. There was a lot of different angles. I knew the likelihood of getting Josh Allen was slim. The only way I'm getting an interview with Josh Allen is if it's at a presser. I don't want to disturb him or get in the way of anything. So obviously avoided that situation. A lot of media wanted to talk to James Cook and get footage of him on Monday. And rightfully so. That's their job. They cover the team every single day. So they need new stuff every day. It's not like me where I'm getting limited opportunities and it's just about more generic content. They need specific hard-hitting stuff. I can do more soft interviews and talk about what the players like to bring to the table, what their skill sets are, and what their expectations for the season are. So I knew I had the Keon Coleman stuff. I was like, you know what? I need to talk about the Bills' offensive line. I knew Milano and Bernard weren't likely to want to talk to me. So I decided not to even spend time getting footage of them. So I was like, you know what? Spencer Brown's back practicing. Connor McGovern was fantastic last year. Deion's amazing. People think Osiris Torrance is going to take a step forward. Obviously, Edwards is a good left guard. I'll get enough good video, popping pads, stuff like that. I'll get somebody after practice. So after practice, Connor McGovern walks my way, and I was like, let's talk to him. Perfect interview. Dude is one of the most well-spoken players on the entire Bills roster. Great interview. After that, I'm like, who am I going to get now? I was trying to get Deion, but I couldn't find Deion. So then I go into a Ray Davis scrum. I get a little bit of that. Didn't post anything from that. Out of nowhere, Keon Coleman's walking by me. I already had all the footage from Monday, so I decide, you know what? Let's just ask. If he says no, It's not a big deal. Didn't look like he wanted to talk to me, but I respect him for taking the time. He did spend a couple minutes. He was patient with me, dialed in, quick answers, but got right to the point. And that turned into a nice package on Keon. And right as I was walking out, I saw Deion Dawkins talking to Lance Lysowski for a moment. And I'm like, I need to get in here before he leaves just to see. And Deion was nice enough to take a second and give me a Chick-fil-A quote, which was kind of funny. I had no idea where he was going with that at first, but
me neither. I was lost.
But yeah, it was awesome. So I got 2 packages out on Monday, one on the offensive line, one on Keon. Before practice, I filmed a 6-minute recap with Matt Perino out of Syracuse.com, was tweeting throughout the practice. So I don't think there's anything I could have done more than what I did during the 4 practices. I had media access. And then obviously I've gone to some as a fan as well, and I'll be there on Thursday. But I do believe Trainwreck, we maximized what our potential was. We showed a lot of people that we do have another side to us. Now, how long will it take for people to realize that was Trainwreck and not just random stuff on Twitter? That might take a while, because a lot of people don't always connect the dots. Like, oh, pay the bills. Like with this video, who's pay the bills? Like, it's Trainwreck. Who's Mike Bunt? Trainwreck. Or
in some cases, they give us credit for things we don't do.
Yeah,
or not. So
hopefully people just watching can start to connect the dots. Like, okay, Trainwreck does have a professional side to them. They do have guys that are former sports reporters like myself, like AJ Sobalski, and guys in college going for that type of stuff, like Carson Hayek and obviously Carson Gates. And then you obviously doing PR. Like we got guys here that have a lot of experience in the mass communications and sports reporting side of things. Just because that's not like our main brand and what we do doesn't mean that we don't have that ability. So I hope we showed a lot of people what we're capable of. I definitely know that people in the media took attention to what we were doing, and that we earned the respect of a lot of people over the last couple of weeks. So it was a really awesome time, and who knows what it means going forward. But any opportunity the Bills give us, we're going to try to make the most out of it, and hopefully it can lead to more opportunities down the line.
Absolutely. And you did an excellent job, Mike, the whole way through. Just really, I was really excited to see everything you're doing. So kudos to you, man. It was a great opportunity, and you crushed it, and it's going to keep coming because of that. So yeah, I wanted to give you a platform to talk about your experience, because it is like, I'm sure people are interested in hearing, like I'm interested in hearing it. So I'm sure there's people interested in hearing just like what the day-to-day experience of being out there with the players, everything else is like, and you did a great job there. So thanks for that, man.
And what I like about like what I did personally is, and maybe it doesn't get the most clicks or the most like retweets or whatever on social media, but a lot of people in the non-traditional sports sphere, they're podcasters or they might be blogging. You do not see a lot of people with video editing skills that have a background covering teams getting opportunities like that. So I'm not trying to say that this means more to me than other people, but I wasn't there just to gain Twitter followers or to tweet out things that any fan in attendance could tweet out. Like, I was there trying to get video to tell stories in a unique way that many non-traditional media members don't do. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's very TV-like, but that's also my background. So what I've noticed over the years is a lot of the TV guys, they're not sharing as much of their TV stuff on social media as much anymore. A lot of them have big followings. They don't need to tweet every little thing to their followers anymore. So I guess I appreciated being able to give a little different perspective on things to people on Twitter, because like even the Benford Harrison interview that I did, the next day there was other outlets that were then talking to Harrison about being mentored and stuff like that. So I felt like I was ahead of that a little bit. Not that like other outlets weren't going to get to that, but I was happy to be able to be a little bit quicker on that. And then even the offensive line, I know typically you'll see people talk to Dion and give him a lot of attention, but it was nice to be able to talk to Connor McGovern and give the Bills starting center some pub, because Connor McGovern might be one of the most underrated players on the entire Bills roster. Like he's a fantastic lineman who has actually contract talks probably coming up in the near future. So it was nice to give my perspective on things, and hopefully, as I said earlier, we'll have more opportunities down the line to kind of evolve what we do.
Absolutely. And we're gonna take full advantage of it. So thank you, Mike, for everything that you've been doing. Thank you for everybody who's been supporting, because we're just getting started here at Trainwreck Sports and here at Pay the Bills. But we have paid the bills here, Mike. No one's touching the Perino hair. Like we can't. There's some battles you just have to accept, I think. And that's one of them for honestly everybody in the Bills sphere. But Mike, we got Hard Knocks in about 45 minutes. You excited?
Oh, I am excited. I can't wait. I actually just downloaded HBO Max just so I could watch it tonight. So that's $9.99. I'm not getting back, but we'll keep it for a couple months. See if anything else catches my eye.
I'm a day one Max subscriber, so this is nothing new.
Yeah,
I'm here. I've been waiting for this moment. Honestly, I really have been waiting for this moment since I knew Hard Knocks existed. The first time I ever watched it, I was like, damn, that'd be cool if the Bills were on it. Didn't think it would happen in 2025 with one of the best quarterbacks in the world, but here we are. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited, but we paid the bills. Shout out to our sponsor, PicassoPizza.net. We'll be back next week to talk more training camp, Hard Knocks. Hopefully James Cook signed a contract and we don't have to talk about negotiations anymore. And we'll go from there. But thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Go Bills.